Brad Porter here with my weekly Sunday update. Hey, this week I'm going to continue my topic around money and finances and a little bit more on personal finances and how I've thought about it. Last week I took a little bit of a victory lap after successful financial return for Scale AI. I've worked in big tech. I've worked for 2 public companies. I've worked for 2 startups, successful exits, and now I've founded my own startup. But as I mentioned last week, like I came to Silicon Valley in debt, significantly in debt. And so I want to talk about how I've thought about personal finances and how I've thought about risk and how I've thought about startups and large companies and how to approach it. Now, obviously this is my home in Saratoga, California, behind me. Like, I've been quite successful, but I've been really disciplined. So there's a funny meme that goes around the internet every once in a while. That's Bill Gates was the richest man in the world until he met Warren Buffett and started to diversify, and says something to the effect of he'd be worth $1 trillion had he not done that. I don't know exactly the financial math behind it, but it's a humorous take. And yet, I have been extremely disciplined, and I want to describe why. Because, frankly, had I been less cautious, right? Had I been more aggressive in betting on myself, I'd be substantially wealthier now. On the other hand, I built this life, this foundation of, family, financial strength, by being extraordinarily disciplined. And so, as I mentioned last week, the first thing I did when I sold AOL stock was I paid down my student loans. Now, my student loans were incredibly low rate and tax deductible. And so I shouldn't have paid down my student loan. That's not the prudent financial advice. The flip side is being in a spot where you're not in debt anymore is liberating. And it made me feel like I could take on joining an early stage startup, right? Because I was getting paid a decent salary and I was no longer in debt. And so even if something happened to my job, I was fine, right? And I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I saw, the economic downturn in Syracuse, New York, when Lockheed Martin and others started laying off a lot of folks, IBM. My friends' families went through tougher times. My dad was a professor, my mom was a librarian. We were financially secure, but not of a tremendous amount of wealth. So I've been disciplined. So I've also diversified as well. At Tellme, 6.5, 7 years in, I was given approval to do a secondary transaction. I sold some of the equity I had in Tellme. Had I just waited another year and a half, it'd have been worth quite a bit more, because I sold it at below the kind of $800 million that we'd exited for. At Amazon, Amazon kept you at a fixed $160K salary, bought a home, started a family. We had expenses, we had needs, and so sold Amazon shares as we went. Originally, kind of fully diversified, and then ultimately I was like, no, I want to hold some of this. I'm really, really bullish on the company. But again, stayed very disciplined. The other side is just financially, I've always believed, look, try to make more money per year than you spend, right? Just operate in the black every year. I'm not someone who's the financial independence, retire early, fire philosophy of just kind of starve yourself until you can retire and then you have complete freedom. I like to work. I like my work. And also, look, I'm a big believer that tomorrow's not guaranteed, right? And so sacrificing today for tomorrow, you also see these internet memes of how's how is this person buying an $8 latte? And it's like, look, if an $8 latte is what gives you joy in the morning, like I'm not judging of that in any way, right? Um, Now I also think, like, from a tax discipline standpoint, I've been better off, early exercising shares at various points in my career, or maybe investing some of my own money into these companies. But I'm investing a huge amount of my time, and particularly startups. There isn't really a guarantee as to how they turn out, right? And so what I've done progressively is just continued to build financial wealth and independence, made sure that I don't, we're not sacrificing as a family in the things that we want to do. But we're we're disciplined, we're cautious, and trying to build wealth to a point where, you know, frankly, I was fortunate enough to build wealth to a point where we could maintain our lifestyle, still operate in the black every year, but go and do my own startup. But I thought about doing a startup even out of college, and I just, with the debt I was in, didn't feel like it was prudent. In many ways, the 13 and a half years at Amazon coincided with the 13 and a half years of my daughter and family, and so having stability, security, healthcare was all super, super important. So, now I'm thinking about, like, look, I'll pan over here. You can see my car, right? The Cobot license plate. I'm driving a Honda CRV these days. Honda CRV was my first car. Obviously, this Honda CRV hybrid is a little better 27 years later. But, eh, am I thinking about getting a very nice, ride? And I am, but I'm still prudent. I'm still a little cautious. So if you have ideas on, some kind of cool car that Brad Porter should drive, then send me a comment. But otherwise, we're gonna still operate, um, taking care of the family, living within our means, and trying to build the best company in the world in robotics. Thanks, everyone.